Alrighty, folks, hello and welcome. Today I want to talk you through the biomechanics of my personal favorite upper lat motion. And in doing so, as you can see, we are going to go over some anatomy, we're going to go over some physics, we're going to go over all the things relative to this exercise. So keep in mind that this is my personal favorite. It doesn't make it the best. The best as a concept is an illusion. Okay, so just clearing that up right now. This is my personal favorite. It doesn't have to be yours. Okay, so if the goals are to target the upper lats, let's start on the right side of our screen here. First of all, shout out to Complete Anatomy. This is my favorite app to use for anatomy related things. No, this is not sponsored. I just absolutely love the app. If we look at the anatomy of the lats, okay, there are two major portions. There are the lower portions of the lat, which are the ones that kind of, let's choose blue here, run up along the side like this. And the lower portions of the lats are the ones that basically run down to the hip, the iliac crest, the basically the tailbone here, and then the lower portions of the spine. So they are kind of this segment right here on the side. The upper lats are basically just, in my estimation, the rest of it. So everything from here to here. The upper lats are kind of the things that will be now in blue. So they are higher up, and the upper lats are the things that, as a consequence of their anatomy being higher up on the body and running more horizontal, are going to pull the arm more horizontally. Okay, so just to draw a clear distinction, the upper lats are going to pull the arm a little bit more in this direction, straight backward, but not quite perfectly backward, as we'll see in this example here, actually slightly high to low, right? Because their fiber direction is kind of sweeping upward just a little bit, whereas the lower lats are the fibers that pull more directly this way, as is evident by their fiber direction. So when we're trying to set up an exercise for the upper portions of the lats, i.e. again, these guys from this perspective, and on me, these guys right here, we need to basically just set up a cable in line with those fibers, right? And not necessarily a cable, but a machine. Hell, you could even hang fucking partially upside down and do a dumbbell, pull down looking thing from upside down. It doesn't really matter. You just need some kind of resistance that is pulling the arm this way, against which these fibers go boop, 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 and resist in the opposite direction. And the upper lats function to do primarily two major things. Number one, they primarily function to serve as scapular retractors, which is this action right here, right? You see the scapula moving backward. And in addition to that, they are upper arm extenders or extensors, however you want to say it, which basically just means that they take this arm and they pull it down. And so when you couple those two things with a load direction that is both pulling the shoulder upward slightly and forward, as in that sort of protraction direction, and you create a sort of upper arm action in tandem with that, that is basically the best possible scenario for targeting the upper lats. So just to kind of walk you all through this exercise now, here is the motion, right? As you can see, the cable is basically running in line the entire time with those upper lat fibers right here. And all that I'm really concentrating on is pulling my elbow down to my hip. Now, in terms of the specifics of this motion, a lot of people will make a few very common mistakes sort of consistently across the board that I see. The first and most common mistake is not paying enough attention to what the rest of your body other than your arm is doing. So what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing that you'll notice if you pay attention to my non-working hand is that it is placed directly up against the bench. Why is it placed there? Well, because if you think about what this cable is actually doing to my body, not only is it pulling my arm forward and stretching my lats, and my lats are resisting that as we ideally want, but it's also actually trying to kind of rotate me away from the working arm, right? Imagine you held your hand out to shake someone's hand and someone pulled you as hard as they could, you would get pulled in the opposite direction of whatever hand is reaching out. The same thing is happening here. So the reason this hand is really pivotal is because it is going to be the thing that prevents you from twisting and turning back and forth and back and forth. A lot of people just turn this into like a trunk rotation exercise, at least secondarily. And we want to basically avoid that by keeping this firm plant. This leg here is just kind of more, convenient for me to put there because, standing would be uncomfortable, and just to anchor some of my body weight down feels really good. Of course, you could also do the sitting as long as the angle is the same, but regardless of what you do with the lower body in this context, placing the hand up against a bench is going to be your best friend in terms of stability, and that's really what you need to concentrate on. Your body and your brain will automatically know kind of how to push into this thing if you have this low direction set. Okay, so that's the biggest thing, is basically people just kind of turning all over the place, making it into a sort of trunk rotation exercise. The second biggest thing is not making sure that the cable stays in line with the forearm throughout the entire range. So what you'll notice is if you track this cable down all the way, just imagine that line is straight, but you should imagine that there is basically a straight line from A to B. If this right here is A, and this over here, the cable origin is B, you should be able to track a straight line down through both of those. That was close enough, you get the point. What will happen is a lot of times, especially when the lats start to fatigue, is people will start to pull the hand kind of this way. And essentially what happens is, rather than the cable going straight through the arm like this, there kind of becomes this sort of weird diagonal angle where, if just imagine my hand were where it is now, a lot of times the cable will end up kind of this way, right? And what that does is it basically tracks it not just through the elbow, but through the arm, where there is now a significant distance to the elbow, i.e. in simpler terms, you start to involve these muscles right over here instead of just the lat like we ideally want to. So number one, hand is firmly planted. Number two, keep the cable in line with the freaking forearm the entire time. If I allow this to play just continuously now, what you will see is that forearm staying in line with the cable the entire time. And then the last thing that I really want to make sure that you all understand is, as we discussed earlier, the upper lats are really good at what? At retracting the shoulder blade, at pulling the shoulder blade backward, again, not as represented here, but more so as represented here. So what you will notice is in the sort of peak stretch portion of every single portion, or every single stretch position of every rep, I'm actively kind of allowing my shoulder blade to get pulled a little bit forward more than I naturally would if I just sort of didn't have that intent to begin with. So what that will look like, basically, if I go, so there's my last rep there. If I go back to the beginning, is not just there, but a little bit of a reach, right? So you see it's like upper arm goes straight, a little bit of a reach. And so what I'm really driving the motion through here is I'm imagining sort of just allowing everything to kind of shift forward and upward toward the cable. Now, put simply and in concrete terms, this exercise is very fucking simple, right? As long as you basically just have a point of contact here, that cable stays in line with your forearm, and you're allowing your shoulder blade to reach forward. At some point, it just remove the thinking. Just set these things up in the ways that look approximately right to you. It doesn't matter if you have a little bit of forearm, recruitment, or a little bit of biceps recruitment. That's not an issue, and those muscles will not be a rate limiter as long as you're setting things up this way, and as long as you're basically just driving your elbow downward as hard as you can, sort of toward your pocket. It's very, very likely that you're going to feel this exercise pretty much solely in your lats, and maybe your rear delts as a sort of secondary mover in the motion. So overall, this is one of my favorite ways to train the upper portions of the lats. Most specifically, doesn't mean the lower portions are not involved. Of course they are, but just proportionately, when we're thinking about the differentiation between lats, with the upper lats, we want to think more something like reaching kind of slightly upward and forward. Whereas if we were to train these lower lats right here, we would want to be reaching kind of more in the pure vertical direction. And so, more vertical motions will be great for the lower lats, but this, of course, will still involve them to a substantial degree. So if any of you have questions about this motion, the last thing that I maybe would like to mention, just to get it out there, is, again, and this is sort of repeating myself from earlier, make sure that you are not tying yourself to just this kind of setup, right? This is all about principles. What does that mean? Well, it basically means that anytime you have your torso here and your upper arm kind of at this slight, obtuse angle right here, and there is a resistance pulling you in this direction over here, guess what? Upper lat motion all the way. And if I looked at myself from behind, what you would see is my elbow just driving nice and tight to my body, right? I'm not driving out wide, I'm driving straight down. And it doesn't matter what implement you do it in. So if you do it in a chest supported row, great. Again, if you do some wonky dumbbell setup where you're basically just doing some kind of like traditional bent over row, but you're really allowing your spine to bend over, great. If you're in a normal cable pull down, like one of these stations over here in the back, if you can see it, and you're really leaning back, great, right? The principles remain the same across contexts, which is why they're principles. So again, torso, upper arm, roughly 120 degree angle, pull down from there, treat it like kind of a row, kind of a pull down, and bada bing, bada boom, you got yourself one hell of an upper lat exercise. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was useful. Please leave any questions below, and I will see you all in the next video.